Okay, this is my DŌST unboxing video. Just arrived today. It is the KOPE CVT version. Been on order for about a year, and the box seems to be in good condition. So now I will follow the instructions using a box cutter to cut these. And then remove the staples, after which I will extract the bike and we'll take a look at it. So, as per the unboxing video, all of these staples have to be removed by prying them out and taking them out with a pair of pliers. So obviously not a one-handed job. Copper staples removed from the top flap of the box, and staples down this side I do not think need to be removed. Now that the staples are removed, I believe we lay the box on its side and remove the bicycle. It's not that heavy, one-handed is fine. Interestingly, I can see a little punch out here for the accessories box. Let's see what's behind here. See this? Come around. Obviously asking to be taken out first. Nothing there though. Interesting. And here's another one asking to be removed. Let's try that. Needs a little bit of oomph. Again, nothing there either. So, a little bit different from what's described in the unboxing video. Here you go. This is opening it up. And we begin to get our first glimpse of what's inside. Oop. Here we go. There's the bicycle lying on its side. Some packing material. Okay, and this is just cardboard, corrugated cardboard. So now I'm going to remove the bicycle, hopefully as easily as Dave does it in the unboxing video, and I'll show you what it looks like. And as I think you can see, this is significantly different from how the unboxing video for the drop and DŌST and KOPE chain is packaged. For one thing, the front wheel is not attached, and for another thing, the stem is there but the handlebars aren't attached. This doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult to sort out, but I would advise you to keep these corrugated boxes available when you unpackage, because you want someone to keep these front forks rested on so they don't get scratched up, unless you're taking this out on grass. In the box as well, a lot of cardboard packing material, as expected, and a DŌST accessories box, which comes up to give you a user manual, an Allen key, pedal wrench, a front, what looks like quick release spindle, charging cable, the charger itself, 2 pedals, 2 keys, and a tool set. And these 2 pedals, I believe, also have a shim for holding the disc brakes apart when you remove a wheel. So I am now going to spend a second looking at the user's manual before I do anything further to the bike, just to make sure I don't mess anything up. So part one of assembly involves removal of the front wheel from the frame by snipping these ties and inserting it into the front forks using this quick release axle. They note that the brake calipers have a small plastic wedge inserted in them, which needs to be removed, and you can just see it there. This is to stop the calipers from squeezing together during shipment. They advise you not to touch the brake handles, because once the plastic shim is removed, if you squeeze the brake, those brake pads will stick together and you won't be able to mount the wheel. And if you've done that, you need to take it to a bike shop to get them to repair it, although I'm sure there's ways you can do it yourself if you YouTube it. Anyway, it's going to be pretty impossible to touch these brake handles. They also mention that the orientation of this spindle can be either way, your preference. The rear one is not a quick release, obviously, because you've got that geared hub. I intend to replace this with a X-lock spindle, which can't be so easily removed by a thief, so it really doesn't matter which way around I do it, but you have to have this handy for when you want. So I'm going to go ahead and snip off the wheel and mount it, and I'll show you next how it looks. Here is the wheel snipped off the bike. The bike is still standing up quite nicely using its rear stand and its front forks on that piece of corrugated cardboard. One item to note is that the cardboard that protects this wheel is also attached with a slit in the cardboard like this, which is taped on. So in order to remove these, you need to just take your knife and just cut, and then you should be able to take this off more easily. Having unwrapped the wheel, I'm now going to unwrap the front forks so that I can place my wheel with the disc brake within the calipers. Having removed the cladding from around the front fork, you can more clearly see the little shim that holds the brake pads apart. This is partially held in place with this zip tie, which also needs to be removed. And this is what it looks like. It matches one that comes in the accessory box, so that which you should probably carry with you if you ever need to take the tyre off or the wheel off to repair it in the field to protect your disc brakes. Of course, if you don't have this with you, as you probably won't, credit card will work just fine as well. One thing they don't mention is that the wheel has this sticking in this side, so you have to remove this. It's just a piece of plastic and it's to protect the spindle, I'm sure, and you can see how the front fork rests on both sides on the axle. So now we take this and unscrew one corner, one end, kind of tighter than I would have expected it to be, but then I am doing it with one hand. So I'm just going to use a second hand and then I'll show you how it's installed. So all unscrewed, and you can see there's a nut with a spring and a corresponding spring with the quick release at the other end. So this gets threaded through. Whoops, successfully retrieved. This gets threaded through. You can see the spring on that end. And then this nut and the spring, which I've just dropped somewhere, will be threaded onto the other end. Having retrieved the spring, I now place this on the end of the spindle and then screw the nut on until it is finger tight. But it doesn't have to be too tight because that lever there is going to finish the tightening. Having screwed that on, I can now close this quick release lever all the way, and that is now pretty tight. By the way, these tyres aren't fully inflated yet, although they're pretty firm. They're not fully inflated. The stem is unwrapped. I assume this is the cover that they tell you to remove and loosen to loosen this nut that's going to fit into this. Just have to lift this up a little bit to access. So, this end cap here with the screw that connects to your front forks most definitely does not fit over this. So I believe this needs to be removed. They talk about a 6mm wrench to remove it. This is the toolkit. It is extremely stiff. You need some sort of pliers or a screwdriver to use it out, but this clearly is not a 6mm socket. I think it looks more like a 5mm. Using a 5mm wrench, you can unloosen this nut and remove these spacers, leaving the stem. I assume these spacers are here so you can have the stem higher or lower. I'll leave them on for the moment just to keep an eye on things. Okay, so the stem with these little nuts loosened with a 3mm, I think 3mm, or maybe 4mm, sorry, wrench, can now be slipped over here and positioned. So I'm just going to hold the bicycle wheel with my legs and gradually put it down, and you can see how those spacers work. They make this higher or lower depending on how you want to sit. I'm now going to just tighten the top stem bolt up through there, make sure that this is in the position I want, and then tighten these up. So as you can see, I'm tightening up this stem bolt using a 5mm wrench, not a 6mm wrench as described in the manual, and I'm going to tighten this up until it's just tight. Not completely tight yet, because I still want to be able to adjust this to make sure these fit. So the manual now gets us to the point, which is kind of where we should have been at the beginning of this process. The stem bolt cover is here and it's sitting in the back. The stem bolt is slightly loosened. Now I can orient the handlebars to the wheel, tighten these bolts up with a 4mm key, I think a 4mm key, and just get them correctly oriented. Install the stem bolt. The stem can still move, and they describe in the manual then tightening the stem bolt up fully, and then they shouldn't be able to move. But of course these have not been tightened, and these do need to be tightened as well. So I am going to get this all squared away, tighten these two bolts and the stem bolt, and put the stem bolt cap back on again, and it should be nice and good to go. Okay, installed and tightened. I do note that the manual does tell you that you can tighten this bolt to 4.4 Newton meters, or 14.5 pound-feet. Of course, they're calling it a 6mm bolt, and it isn't, it's 5mm, so I'm not sure how accurate that is. However, these bolts do have the torque written next to them, 6 to 8 Newton meters. So I'm going to get my torque wrench and just make sure they're properly torqued up. But basically, this looks pretty good to me. It looks as though this is reasonably straight as far as I can tell. That's the wheel straight on, and those are the handlebars. And of course, if it turns out that I'm wrong, then I'll just have to loosen it up and do it again. Okay, all tightened to spec, and then you just check to make sure that it's really tight. Hold this wheel between your knees, shake these handlebars, give it a bit of a welly, make sure nothing moves. That's all good. Now time, I think, for the seat. So pedals are actually next, and as you can see there are directional pedals. This is the right one, this is the left one. In case it's not obvious, the right side is here on the drivetrain side and the left is here on the non-drivetrain side. According to the manual, the right pedal screws in counterclockwise and the left pedal screws in clockwise. So counterclockwise will be this way. Despite that, interestingly enough, the manual says turn the pedal axle in the direction of the front wheel, which of course would be completely the opposite way around. So let's find out. So here's the right pedal, just starting, and even though the instructions say that the right pedal goes on the drive side crank arm and screws in counterclockwise, which as you know would be this way, the opposite way to which a clock goes, it in fact screws in clockwise, which later on, to their credit, they do say turn the pedal axle in the direction of the front wheel, which of course is that way. So that's what I'm doing, and it's screwing in quite nicely. So two contrary instructions there, but clearly just do it so you don't cross the threads. Do it by hand. Very, very easy. And then it kind of stops, and then I'm going to use the wrench to finish the tightening process there. This is the included wrench. And as you can see, it has one end which is labeled 1416 and this labeled 1513. So you want the 1416 end, and you want to slot it onto the nut and then tighten in the direction you were tightening before. Now it gives you a torque, but of course I don't have a torque wrench that I can use like this, but you're supposed to do it up to 7.6 Newton meters, which is tight enough to leave a good impression on your hand, but not super strong. The left pedal is directly the opposite. So coming down here, I'll take the wrapping off the crank arm on the left side, rotate it around, make it a little bit easier. So this screws in counterclockwise, unlike what it says in the manual, but towards the front wheel, which as it does say in the manual. And again, not so easy to do with one hand, so I will just do it two-handed. So having gotten it started in the thread, I'm just twisting it in a very gentle way. And you can see the nut here has a flat bit that fits the wrench and a little serrated bit. I don't know why it has that, but it does. So here we go. Down to it's not turning anymore when I'm turning this. Now I'm going to use the wrench to tighten it. Mission accomplished. And I'm going to add to my growing pile of packing material, which I'm assured is all recyclable, and recycling is coming tomorrow. So that's next up. We have to adjust the headlight, which should be rotated until it is basically parallel with the ground. This will ensure that a beam of light comes out of it and hits the ground about 5 feet ahead of you. This is apparently a 4mm nut, and it should tighten appropriately, although it seems to me that it is not 4mm, but it is probably 3mm. So let's try the 3mm tool. No, it is 4mm. Okay, my bad. No, it is not 3mm, and it is not 4mm. So what is it? Maybe it is. Who knows? Next up, you need to adjust the headlight so that it is parallel to the ground. You can really rotate it very easily on its hex nuts. Parallel on the ground will apparently result in the light hitting the ground 5 feet in advance. The manual says to tighten up these nuts with a 4mm hex key, but actually it's 3mm, not 4mm, and it tightens up very easily on both sides, and that should keep it snug. That's really the completion of the setup. Now all you need to do is make sure that the seat height is correct for you, take off the rest of the protective gear and charge it up. You can also adjust the angle of the stem or the rake, so this can be more upright or more forward depending on what position you want to cycle in. Maybe you want to try it out for a little while before you make any of those adjustments. The seat is just adjusted by a quick release, should be very straightforward. You should be able to stand over it on the seat and touch the ground with your tippy toes on at least one side, and preferably both. And then charge this puppy up and let's see what happens. So, all the protective wrapping taken off now. I will note that you do have to connect the light here to here. You also have to take the protective film off here and here. This is tough to get off. You need patience and good fingernails, neither of which I possess. There are a few little tags that I'm going to remove. Given that I know my left from my right, I'm going to take the left and right stickers off the pedals. And this is very interesting. There's a leash. I have no idea what this leash is for, but it comes off. It's a very attractive red leash, but I don't know what it's for. So, first impressions, very, very attractive looking bike. This is kind of weird. There's been a bite taken out of this. I have no idea what that's about. Looks like something scuffed that, or something gripped it. This rear fender seems reasonably good condition. I'll just give them a call and just send them a picture. They'll probably send me a new one with some instructions on how to install it. This is extremely loose. This needs to be tightened up. The seat looks amazing. It's a beautiful black with red finish. Kope CVT, slightly raised. I'm really looking forward to trying out this gearbox. Of course, the throttle and the buttons, the display. All in all, a very, very cool looking bike. Thanks very much. I'll let you know when I've got it charged up, and I'll give you my first impressions. A few final thoughts before I finish for the evening. A couple of things I had to do after I stopped charging was to adjust these handlebars. These 4 nuts were actually loose, and so this wasn't showing in the center, and when I adjusted my handlebar angle, my reach, the handlebars were twisted in a weird way, so I wanted them brought up so that the brake was more in the front rather than down, and the throttle was more easily accessible. So basically I have to loosen these four nuts, twist the handlebar and tighten them back up again. There is no torque setting visible for these. At some point in this long journey, DŌST sent me this disc brake lock, and as I'm leaving it out overnight next to my house charging, I'm going to put that on and see how that works. Of course, if you move the bike, it makes a noise. Also, you recall I spotted these bites taken out of the back of the fender. When I was clearing up the mess from the box, I found this in one of the boxes, so clearly this is a fracture of the rear fender. And I contacted DŌST, and I'm sure they'll send me a new fender, which I will have to install. By the way, this little feature here that holds the fender in place is completely loose. It's still pretty loose, and these were touching the wheel, so I had to get an Allen key and tighten. Actually, it's a hex key, Torx wrench, sorry, and loosen these and pull them up to pull this off and pull this away. And you can see it's still kind of not that great, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it because obviously this fender is going to have to be replaced anyway, so I will sort that out when I replace the fender. I spent some time setting up the display. In the manual it says that there's a separate manual that you can get on the DŌST website. There isn't. There's just a frequently asked questions, and there's a video which is somewhat helpful for those of you in the United States. Apparently changing the wattage output from 500 to 750 is as simple as increasing the maximum speed allowed, which I've done. There's nothing in the manual about how to set up these shocks, but there is a video that discusses it. So there we go. Its battery was at 0%, which isn't surprising seeing as it's been on a boat for months. So I'm charging it up. It will take approximately 6 hours. I do have the spare battery pack that I will put on when I have time, and I do have some spare bottle lugs there that I can put a Foley lock on or something like that as well. I intend to change out these quick release fixtures for hex locks features. I cannot imagine why anything other than a mountain bike needs a quick release seat and front wheel. It's just an invitation to get those things stolen. So I'll show you when I do that. I'm also going to change this seat post to a suspension seat post, probably a Connect one, probably in the next couple of weeks when I've ridden the bike for a little while and decided what I need. Anyway, that's all for now.